national and regional teaching councils. We endorse the idea, but we agree that we still have some work to do because
there are so many components involved in that. We're talking from legals and teachers union and the teachers themselves. So we felt, yes, we will form a task force which would further look into that, because sometimes I've spoken sometimes about license for teachers, but even teachers themselves might take it not as being a good for them. So we still have some work to do on that. Of course, we spoke about financing, and we had the good pleasure of hearing from the Caribbean Development Bank, the World Bank, people who help to finance some things that are already going on in some of our countries, like the Pearl Project, like we have the GPE grants. So that was a continuation of conversation that were already taking place, of decisions, of programs already implemented. So we had updates on that, and we are moving forward in the right direction. We also look at professional training, further training for teachers. A high percentage of our teachers are operating either without formal training or with just teachers college training, and a number of them have requested to upgrade. I know that is a big conversation in Dominica now, because with the new management structures that we had in place, which requires that for some of these positions, these new positions created, that teachers must have a first degree. So although we made allowance for people with 18 years experience and a teacher's certificate, the real deal is for the people who have a degree. So we had a conversation on an update on the associate, at least an associate degree program for teachers. And while we spoke about the training, we realized that the training cannot be as we had it before. The conversation had already begun in Dominica about the rapid drop in school population and the need now to retrain people on individualized instruction. That was Dominica seeing that in some cases we have like about 20 schools with less than 40 children. So some classes cannot even do group work. So you have to focus on individualized teaching. But more importantly, we had to bring in the conversation of AI and how do we train our children to use the information and they don't feel guilty about it. How do they access this information? Is that a new thing? Because before, when children just used to just pull up print from encyclopedias, we train them on how, when they pull out information from an encyclopedia, how to integrate it in their writing. So we now see the need for that too, that when they go and pick up information and on all of those modern digital platforms, how to present it. Everything from beginning to end, you could see where the digital transformation was being roped in. And one of the big things that will happen is we have a document and an agreement, the Rosa Declaration for the OECS digital education, because everything ties in with that. Everything boils down to what is in there. Everything in there are things we have verbally committed to. And so what we are doing, we are formalizing this agreement that the ministers will sign, because even if you are speaking about teacher development building, it's roped into this ecosystem. Data management is roped into this system. Even our policies, our learning systems, pedagogy, content, context, AI, and all of the other things, connections in school, devices, guidelines, policies for you know how we can train our children. Although, if you ask me, we're a little behind in that, and we still have work to do on even training our children on how to be responsible digital citizens, because this is what our students are becoming, digital citizens, and they must be responsible and know what their footsteps entail, because those footsteps are going to be there for all ever. I heard they're going to be there forever. That's scary. So you better leave good footsteps. It's true, because I go to the schools and I tell the children, when you apply for a job, even before we interview you, we check on the social media platform who you are there. According to who you are on the social media can determine if you get employed or if you do not get employed. Simple thing. According to what your email address is. I don't know hot and spicy at Yahoo or at Hotmail teaching in a class. Hot and spicy is for your friends. But when you're applying for a job, you have to make it more professional and more formal. So there, we have come a long way, but we are still saying there we have a lot of things to do still. But we also, in our agreement, I go back to the agreement. In our agreement, we have a lot of all those things in our agreement with green ticks are things those we have already accomplished, and we still boiling with excitement because there are some other things that we are working on that we will over the years, as we accomplish them, will be included. And we're talking about micro credentials. We're also talking about what a virtual campus, our EMIS policy, software, regional edtech policy, AI governance. We now hearing a bigger conversation, a more serious conversation about free movement. And I said we are one step ahead in the OECS with the harmonized primary school curriculum. Because if a child leaves Dominica and goes to St. Lucia, no stress. You fall in maybe in almost the lesson that the teacher might be teaching could be the lesson you did in Dominica yesterday. Or so we are ahead in some of those things. And we already have a platform that can absorb a lot of other things. What we're noticing, and I will stop so that other people can speak too. What we are noticing too is that even our situations might be different. Again, we have similar concerns, similar challenges, similar aspirations. You hear a lot about special education, about TVET and life skills, about psychosocial competency. We heard about AI. We heard, what we heard about y'all? We heard again about early childhood. So we have the common language that the Minister of Education is speaking. I think is the same thing that the ministers of education around the region are also speaking, and that also strengthens our resolve, our commitment, and our determination to make some things happen for our children. So I'll pause there a little to give other ministers a chance. I say no.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm not sure what is the order we'll be following. Are we going to speak freely, or, for example, she mentioned the National and Regional Teaching Council, which came up. Can, for example, the Minister from St. Kitts and Nevis comment further on how that is expected to work?
Thank you very much. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are moving towards professionalizing our teaching force. A number of cabinet submissions would have already been presented to our cabinet as we move forward with the support from UNESCO. And it is our hope that in the distant future that we would have the National Teaching Council that will be set up more or less to guide the profession as we try to make sure that we continue to put the best teachers in the education system or before our classroom. There would be some financial obligation, of course, of the government, because this council would be almost independent of government. So that is the framework that is being worked out. And I am happy that my representative, Mrs. Diamond, Carla Diamond, was able to to bring us up to date as to where we are and where we are heading with this. So I'm looking forward to this happening.
Minister Matthew, maybe you could comment on how some of these measures that you agreed upon here at the meeting will translate into real tangible benefits for our students in Antigua and Barbuda and across the region.
I'm sure. Thank you very much. Let me begin first of all by commending the Minister of Education for Dominica for, in a very excellent manner, conducting the meeting over the last day and a half. I believe your leadership and your guidance really played a phenomenal role in the outcome that we have agreed upon. In terms of the decisions that we've made and how they're likely to impact the development of our young people in the OECS region specifically, one of the areas of which I'm very passionate and which there was excellent discussion was with teacher development and capacity building. How do we develop our teachers, train our teachers to convey knowledge to our young people and the young at heart in a 21st century environment? And so I believe that the presentation that was given really outlines some of the strategies that are being put in place to ensure that our teachers continue to be one step ahead of the game. One of the areas that we had some discussions about was how do we incorporate artificial intelligence and technology generally in the teaching and learning process. Our young people are among the brightest anywhere. We see the results globally of the achievements of all of our citizens here in the OECS and the Caribbean at large, but we need to continue to keep ahead of the curve. We need to continue to find very strategic and modern ways to ensure that our people remain competitive. And so I'm quite pleased that one of the outcomes in this meeting over the last day and a half was really looking at how we can continue to modernize the abilities of our teachers. We can continue to keep our teachers trained. We can continue to keep our teachers ahead of the curve because the teachers are really the gatekeepers of our young people's ability to compete globally.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Andrew from Grenada. These types of meetings are often criticized as mere talk shops. How do we ensure that the decisions taken at this meeting are implemented in member state? Is there a monitoring mechanism in place?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to join my colleague minister here in commending our chair, Minister Octavia Alfred, for her distinguished leadership in conducting the business of the day or the last couple of days. Whether or not these are talk shops, for one, I'll start with, before we even talk about any of the monitoring mechanisms, just the very fact that this Council of Ministers has engaged young people and have had students come. So we've had students from across the region, not just from Dominica, but also from Antigua, Barbuda, from Grenada, from St. Lucia, and they were all present being part of this engagement. And they got the opportunity to speak to the ministers, to address concerns, to ask questions. That alone is very significant, and it speaks to continuity. It speaks to continuation and our desire to see transition of leadership and to ensure that the things we talk about, our students, the people we are charged to represent, can hold us accountable because they're aware, they know, they've been part of the engagement. So I see that as being very, very instructive. Additionally, this has been very collaborative because quite a lot of the regional partners and stakeholders have been engaged in this Council of Ministers meeting. So we've had representatives from GPE, Global Partnership for Education. We've had representation from KICS, Knowledge and Innovation Exchange. We've had representation from CDB, from CARICOM, and the University of the West Indies Joint Board of Teacher Education. All of these partners, and the fact that we're doing it collaboratively indicates that we have a lot of stakeholders and partners who are very available to help us keep on course and to implement, because these partners are intimately involved in our operations across the region. And of course, within the OECS setup, monitoring, evaluation, and there are continuous opportunities for caucuses to monitor where we go, where are we at with implementation, And to be quite fair, several of the things that we have talked about and formalized here are things that are in many measures en route. So they are being implemented. So they're not talk shows. They're actually taking place, and we are formalizing and cementing many of them to make sure they continue to take place.
I have a couple more questions, but we also have with us a representative from the national radio station, DBS Radio. I wonder if he wanted to pose a question or two to the ministers here.
So it's actually a declaration on the OECS digital education, the ecosystem, everything concerning education. Document a little long, but I'll take time because could be the highlight of everything. So we have like digital infrastructure and connectivity. We have to increase internet bandwidth for schools, distribution of digital devices to students and teachers, digital platforms and learning system to develop the OECS Learning Hub. Now, we already have a system in place for the primary school where parents and teachers and students can access, where we have curriculum guides online. From the curriculum guides, you can get lesson plans. You can also get assessment exercises. It's a tool that is well developed, and you can get teaching aids on there too. What it does is this makes planning easier for teachers. Because one thing, if you interview teachers, all of them will say something about prep. They call it prep. Everybody complaining about prep, that every night they have to correct papers and prep. So what this does is it cuts the prep time by more than 75% because everything is there for teachers to adapt to their context. And that now, one of the objectives of that is to ensure that teachers spend more time with students who need one-on-one instruction, and to, as our education system in Dominica keeps pushing, to pay a little more attention to the pastoral care of students, because now we have less time to plan. So you can spend time knowing more than just their name and their address, but if there's food on their table and shoes on their feet, and if they have a good place to sleep because you had a good conversation with them. So we are also looking at the monitoring, evaluation, research, learning platforms, all that we have committed to, the content of the curriculum and development of the curriculum. And as teachers are preparing their lessons that they pull from this platform, they are also sharing these lesson plans. So more and more you have more and more lesson plans being on that platform. Sometimes you teach a lesson and you have a light bulb minute, or some people call it a teachable moment, where something you didn't have in your plan came up and you have to deliver it, and everybody in the class just lights up and you'd want to share that. So what I like most about this thing is that somebody in St. Lucia can have a light bulb moment, and somebody in Dominica can now adopt and adapt and present that too, which means that not everybody here speaks Creole, but old people say, less pipaka weste on your tete, which means that common sense and knowledge is not in one head. So some things you might be beating up yourself about, you might realize, but look, somebody in Grenada had that similar problem and look what they tried. And so the other thing about that lesson, that platform and the lessons that are being offered, if people follow them well, that is answering to something that we've been asking for. In Dominica, I can speak of, but I know everywhere, to bring back fun in learning, to bring back happiness at school. And I said to people, I said to my teachers every time I speak, I say, I want to still be alive when you say there's no school tomorrow and you don't get yoo-hoo. Because school has become such a happy place that we can play Sparrow's Calypso. School days are very happy days and know it's true. So what that platform does and what that platform offers, a lot of activities, student-oriented lessons that the students are in control of their lesson, which I hope will change the conversation among our teachers, that we keep saying my lesson. And we tell children, make sure you do my homework. So we are hoping that the language will change. This is your lesson. And make sure you complete your homework. It's not mine, it's yours. So that is what this thing does for us. It also transforms the language that teachers speak, because it's not now I am going to demonstrate, but instead is no, you are going to do. I could spend the whole rest of time talking about this platform, but we have to move on. So we have curriculum content. We also have teacher development and capacity building. So where teachers can also get tips and ideas. We have continuous professional development through this platform. We already have 1,300 educators on board, and it's not even old. It doesn't even have a birthday yet. It's just less than 6 months. And the number of teachers who are already logging in and the feedback is wonderful. So we have teacher training in technology integration, which is important for what we are trying to do, transforming the system to meet the 21st century ask. We have the data management where people can enter data and everybody can be involved. So the minister can go on that platform too and know exactly where the schools are in mathematics. You know, so it's a good thing. It's what is in. We also have policies on safety. We hear a lot about school safety these days, and what our commitments as ministers, what is asking from us is to support the full implementation and sustainability of the OECS digital learning ecosystem, advance the regional EMIS initiative, adopt and implement a regional OECS EdTech policy, establish clear benchmarks, and strengthen resilience, collaboration, and capacity development. All of these have a little explanation to them, but generally, this is what this ROSO, that's something, ROSO's declaration. To imagine our biggest conversation in Dominica is education reform, and to think that we are going to sign on a ROSO declaration, it's happening right in Dominica, and we are happy for what we are getting. We are happy for what we are discussing, and the future looks bright for education in the region.
Thank you, Minister. As we wind down, I would like to give the opportunity to the Minister from Anguilla and our Parliamentary Secretary from St. Lucia to just comment on the outcomes of the meeting and how you see this benefiting your students in your respective territories and across the region. And something the Minister just mentioned, education reform. In his remarks at the opening ceremony, the Prime Minister called for comprehensive education reform. Do you think we got close to that in your two-day meeting here in Dominica?
Thank you so very much. I absolutely do believe that. I want to start by thanking the Honorable Minister of Education from Dominica for the warm welcome. It's my first time in Dominica, and it has been really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all of the hospitality and providing this forum for us to be able to engage, to speak both formally and informally about some of the challenges that we are facing. And as indicated before, a lot of the challenges that we have are shared challenges. And so it's great to be able to hear from other ministers who have traveled some of the roads that we in Anguilla are about to travel. You know, one example of that is the teaching councils. This is something that we've been talking about for quite a while. One of the considerations that we had is funding and some of the challenges of just general implementation. So hearing from the St. Kitts case study, you know, helped us to really realize the level of resources that it's going to take to implement something like this. And so, you know, it's going to take a long-term strategy to be able to get to that end point. But I'm also very happy that OECS and the ministers have committed to assisting us in that. And I think the shared connectivity and really being able to pool our resources and learn from each other is critically important. I'm also heartened that we're looking at moving forward a general EMIS program. We in Anguilla have advanced quite a bit in our EMIS program on island. And so it's great to see that we're moving in the right direction in relation to that, because those platforms are critically important for us as education ministers, because you have the data and information readily available to you to make sound data-driven decisions on the direction of education in your country. But also there are platforms that help teachers, parents, and educators all be engaged on what's happening in our students' lives. So that's something that's critically important for us in Anguilla as well. So there are a number of key takeaways from this, and I'm certainly a new minister. I've only been elected since February. So I'm still in very much a transition period. We're also going through our budgetary period in Anguilla right now as well. So this is a keen time for me to be able to be here, to listen to some of the things that we're going to be collectively trying to advance, so that when I go back to Anguilla, I can have those discussions with my ministerial colleagues about the importance of the investments in education that we need to take in collaboration with other ministers and of course OECS. So again, definitely not a talk shop for us. These forums are critically important for us to move forward in education, and not just education, but just generally socially as our countries try to advance collectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to join my other colleagues in complimenting Minister Alfred from Dominica for an excellent job in taking up the chair. She sounded like somebody who had been the chair for a long time. I'd also like to thank the OECS Commission for the support that they've been providing. I think that 2 days or 1.5 days has been very comprehensive. We have discussed a lot, and probably we don't realize that we have probably touched on every aspect of education. We looked at parent teachers, we looked at counseling, teacher professional development, assessment, engaging the youth, giving the youth a voice, higher education, financing of education, data, education management information, our status, digital learning, ecosystems. So it's a lot that we have dealt with during the week, and in the 2 days, I say a week because we've learned so much. I think sometimes we take it for granted, the impact of COVID and the importance of counseling in our system. And I do not know for other territories, but in St. Lucia, we have realized that a lot of our students, even the teachers, are burnt out, the principals, and we have to provide the kind of support that is necessary. And so these issues cannot be talk shop. These issues are serious issues that confront us, that some of those that we have been working on for years. We are still in the process of implementing a number of them. When we look at assessment at CXC is still growing. And I know the students have their criticisms, the parents, but you would agree with me that CXC has really, really grown over the years. They are trying to provide the kinds of assessment that we need in the region. And so we have to be supportive of CXC, but we have to let CXC know what we want as well. For higher education, for the new types of employment that are developing in our system, what the stakeholders are asking for. All of these are important aspects that CXC has to understand. In the region as well, we have been very tardy when it comes to providing data, and we need to have data-driven decisions. And so we are working assiduously in trying to develop data, because sometimes we ask for assistance and we do not have the data to back the reason why we would want such assistance. And so these forums provide us with an opportunity for collaboration, an opportunity where we do not have to reinvent the wheel, because sometimes we hear of stories, success stories in some of the territories, and some other territories may not be aware of them. And so this is a platform where we can collaborate, where we can work together, where we can learn from best practices so that together we move forward and provide the kind of education that our students would need in the 21st century, because you would agree with me that some of us are way behind and we need to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that takes us to the end of our briefing this afternoon here. I wish to thank the members of the OECS Commission who are here and who have provided valuable support during the 2 days, well, 1.5, and during this short press briefing. Ministers, thank you so much for participating in this media briefing and of course for participating in this meeting here in Dominica. We wish you the very best going forward. Do enjoy your trip to the Kalinago territory and safe journeys home. Thank you, everyone.